Hello Year 8. In this tutorial we're going to look at jumping. Now when you consider a character in a computer game jumping, we're going to try and program gravity. If you ask yourself what gravity is, it's a force that's pulling us down to earth. We're going to simplify that and basically get our character to check if there is something solid in the pixel element underneath them. And if there isn't something solid, we're going to apply a force or a speed that will pull them down. And when we get that working, what we're going to do is the opposite, if you like, apply jumping. We're going to check if you have something solid underneath you, you will be able to press a button and it will apply a motion for you to go up. So I suggest that you read through the part 2 jumping and you try and understand it. Some of it is slightly advanced physics, what we call a game engine. So I'll try to explain the physics of this basic game engine. Right, let's begin. So we look at last week, the last lesson. This is where we finished. I'm going to begin by going into my level 1 room, as you can see, and I'm going to move Mr. Angry Strawberry just up here, and I'm going to program some gravity. So what you'll see when I've finished, he will just fall down and fall straight through the floor. And I'm going to begin by my programming. The first thing that we're going to do is add something called a stepper event, and that checks each frame in our computer game. If you consider the frames like flicking through an old jotter, each page would represent a frame. And we're going to use the step to check 30 frames per second. So I'm choosing step. So basically 30 times a second, the computer is going to check is there something underneath our character. So we put that in. What we're going to do is check if a position is collision free. So in my control tab, I'm going to check if the position is collision free. What am I going to check? This is where it gets a wee bit confusing. GameMaker is strange in that it's X and Y coordinates. Remember, X and Y. GameMaker uses negative values to go up and positive values to go down. So I'm getting it to check the 1 pixel on the Y axis, and believe it or not, GameMaker strange, that's underneath the character. And I always want this to be relative. Look, 30 times a second, check that there's something solid underneath my character. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Next, we're going to set the gravity. So we go back up to remove, and there's an option here to set the gravity. So I'm going to drag that under and set the gravity. And if there's nothing underneath my character, now in here I'm putting the direction 270. And again, this is strange to GameMaker. This is the degrees of the circle, and GameMaker strangely starts right as 0, and then it goes up 90, 180, and 270 is pointing down. So I'm going to get the GameMaker to look down at gravity, and I'm going to apply a force. And again, you can change this. I'm going to put a 0.5, and I definitely don't want this relative. I don't want gravity to get faster and faster and faster. And I'm going to hit OK. And the second part of this here is going to put in an else statement, and this is what we call selection in computer science. If this is true, do A, else do B. So I basically said, if there is nothing underneath you, apply gravity, else don't apply gravity. And the programming equivalent to that is set the gravity to 0. We'll just keep this 0 and 0. So what I'm going to do now is run my game, and what you should do is just see the character fall right through until it goes through the floor. So we'll save that and we will run it. And hopefully if this responds, you'll see my character fall through the floor. And here we go. Angry Strawberry, boom, he's out of the room. So what we have to do is stop falling through the floor. And what I'm going to do, or we're going to do, is we're going to tell them, look, if you collide with the floor, don't have gravity. And in order to do that, I'm going to add my second event, which is a collision with the wall. So I'm going to say add event, and you collide. And if you collide with the wall, I'm going to use an option called move in contact, and we will find that in my move tab. Here we go. Move to contact. Now, direction. I'm going to use one of GameMaker's inbuilt variables called direction. It is constantly storing the direction that our character is faced. And in here, it's the maximum number of pixels that I want it to move. In your tutorial, I think I've said 12. That's just really an arbitrary value. It can be -1, which in fact represents 1,000. I'm going to put in 1,000 pixels. Anything really, it doesn't matter because we just want it to stop. So I'm saying moving contact to the direction, a maximum a number of pixels, and I'm going to click OK. And next I'm going to set the vertical speed. So what I'm saying is if you hit the ground, I'm going to set the vertical speed. And here's my vertical speed. And I'm going to set that to 0. So now when we run the game, Mr. Angry Strawberry should fall to the ground, but when he hits the floor, there should be no vertical speed, which means no gravity. And here we go. Angry Strawberry Head, boom, hits the floor, we've got our gravity. And the final thing we want to do is to add jumping onto our game. And this is very straightforward. So I'm going to add an event, and again I'm going to use the key press, and traditionally it would be up, would give us jump, so I'm hitting up. And what actions do we want on this? Well, you're going to think, look, I only want my character to be able to jump if he's on solid ground. I don't want a super jump where you can jump in the air and jump in the air and jump. That would just be a cheat. So I'm going to get them to check that there is a collision or there's something underneath their feet. So in my control, I'm getting them to check here. Check that there's a collision and where it's on the y-axis, and remember y1. Check that there's something underneath you, and I want this relative. You're always checking that there's something colliding underneath you. And then if there is something underneath your feet, I'm going to give you a vertical speed. Only this time I'm going to go negative. So move, where's my vertical speed? The speed vertical. And remember, GameMaker being strange, a negative value. And this negative value is pretty much your jump height. I'm going to give it, I think in your tutorial I've said -12. Again, not relative. You don't want to go faster and faster and faster. Experiment with this. That's effectively your jump height. Again, I'm going to save this, and I'm going to wait for this to execute, and that should give me my gravity. What's happening is that we're constantly checking underneath our character, and if there's nothing there, you fall down. We're going to then check if you collide with a wall, we're going to move you with it into the wall, and finally we're going to hit up for jump, and that's going to check that there's something solid underneath you. It's going to allow you to put a negative value vertical speed. And here we go. Gravity, left, right, jump, and he comes back down. And again, experiment with that. So what we want, what your teachers want, is when you've completed this lesson, can you give us a 10 to 20 second video or flip grid snap showing your character going left, right, jumping with gravity. Any questions, post to your team, post to your flip grid, and help each other out. Good luck.